Hi there. Thanks for joining CPG Bytes, a series of short video segments from Treasure Data, where we chat about the latest news and industry trends and read between the lines to provide our perspective and insights. So, David, my friend, what do you have for us this week?
Hey, good afternoon, Stephen. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. How about you?
I'm doing great, thanks. So, doing a little bit something different this week in that normally we pick some sort of news item or whatnot, but Treasure Data just released this case study around AB InBev, and it's just a great. Now, granted, I'm biased, right? I guess to some degree, but I just thought this was a really, really good case study of how a major global food and beverage company, beer liquor distributor, is utilizing a CDP to really drive their digital transformation and drive superior customer experience and personalization at scale. And so I thought I'd just walk through. It's a pretty decent size case study. It's about 7 pages long, but I thought I'd kind of pull out some of the highlights in here. And obviously, all of the listeners and viewers of CPG Bytes can go to the Treasure Data website and get access to this so they could read it on their own. But I thought you and I could just kind of talk about some of the key points here. So if we just scroll down, everyone knows who AB InBev is, right? I think goes out saying they're what a wonderful and great global CPG company they are. But what was interesting is, the reason they kind of went down this digital transformation path, as you notice on the left here, they really had 3 goals, right? One was to better manage and administer their worldwide data assets, but do that in a secure fashion and be able to be in compliance with all applicable laws. And I think we'll talk a little bit more about this, but that all applicable laws is pretty darn important. The second was to break down silos, integrate data. They talk about having over 1,000 data sources, and you think, oh, come on, that's not possible. But think about, this is a global organization with dozens and dozens of brands. And when you start thinking about it along those, the whole intersection of brands and geographies and countries and localities, you quite frankly do get to that 1,000 data sources pretty quickly. And then the last piece here is this achieve personalization at scale for all of its markets. And I think, if maybe we work a little bit backwards from this, I think that last one, that personalization at scale, I would argue it to some degree, that's almost table stakes today, right? That every CPG company should be thinking about how can they achieve personalization, but do it at scale. And Stephen, you and I've talked about this before, that personalization is really kind of that key, that entry point into developing that trusted relationship with your consumers that therefore then drives loyalty and that brand loyalty that everybody is aspiring to. So I think the personalization to some degree is the table stakes for a solution like this. The second, though, is we start talking about this, breaking down these data silos. I'd call your attention to this here on the right. And this is pretty typical, right? They talk about how much of their data was actually either sitting with agencies. Like, for the listeners and viewers of this video, I think if you are a brand owner, if you start thinking about how much of the data that you have and that valuable data on your consumers and your different customers, et cetera, maybe sitting with agencies that you don't have control of, or with brands directly if you have it. But if you're a multi-brand organization, those contribute to these silos. And so having this data stored in all these different locations is enormously inefficient. And it becomes difficult to have synergies, right, when you have the data not integrated together. And later, hopefully, we'll get to it. I can point out one of the points that sometimes I think people forget about is the cost associated with that. And one of the value propositions of Treasure Data CDP for AB InBev was the fact that they could decommission some of these other infrastructures, if you will, associated with those data silos and get a hard dollar return from that. So there's absolutely value from a revenue perspective and from a loyalty perspective of integrating that data together to get a better view, that kind of single view of the customer. But there's also a value proposition from a cost standpoint as well. And then the last piece, that really drove this, if we kind of scroll down a little bit more, is this security of data and being able to do it from a legal perspective. Here's the quote. I apologize, around the saving money associated with decommissioning, if you will, some of those data silos. But if we come down here, what's interesting is if you think about yourself as a consumer, right? You have certain desires in terms of how you want your data to be handled, right? And you could almost view that as an attribute of the consumer. And so what's interesting about treasure data is that we manage those preferences, if you will, of how my personal data is going to be managed kind of in the same system. We allow it to be managed as part of that profile. So you have the same system that's not only tracking my attributes as a consumer, but also managing my privacy preferences, which makes it really, really easy for not IT, but marketing, for the line of business owners to manage basically the privacy of the data and the controlling of that data. And so as people opt in and opt out, as laws change, and laws are going to continue to change, you need that flexibility, that ability to react quickly, right, to those changes, so that you can make sure that you're handling that personal data properly. And again, it gets back to trust. I, as a consumer, know you've put in the right safeguards. You're treating my data with care and with and with respect, if you will, and managing that. That just all helps in that trust equation. And so I think that's a key piece, that the same solution that's tracking all of those attributes of the consumers, also managing their privacy and data kind of preferences as well, and allowing line of business to manage that. So you have the ability to react with the speed and efficiency that you need to. The other thing that I thought was kind of interesting, if we scroll down a little bit more, here's talking again about, I like this quote, you don't need to be an IT genius to do it. So this whole point about this solution allows the brand managers and marketeers to manage a lot of these capabilities is really, really important, right? Because again, you want to be able to act with speed. You don't need to be relying on your IT department to make a lot of these changes. The other piece though, that they're just starting to get into is this real-time aspect, right? And I think we probably talked about this in previous CPG Bytes, Stephen, about how, the world's accelerating, the data is becoming more accessible. You want to be able to deliver the right message to the right person. We've talked about this before, at the right time, right? And that time piece is so critical. So having the infrastructure, having a data platform that can manage those real-time signals, so that you can actually deliver that message to that right person at the right time. Now, the context here that AB InBev talks about is from an e-commerce, from a direct-to-consumer perspective, right? You're talking about down here in this area that if someone has put a product in the cart, you want to make sure you communicate with them quickly if they've walked away and they've abandoned that cart, so you can hopefully capture them before they go shopping somewhere else. But it doesn't have to. We don't need to be thinking about real time solely in the context of e-commerce, right? There's all sorts of other use cases around delivering a message when a person maybe is in a store, is it in a sporting event, for a company like AB InBev, they're sponsoring a lot of concerts and those kind of things. So there's all sorts of other use cases above and beyond e-commerce and direct-to-consumer selling, where real-time interaction is super important. And you want to make sure that your platforms, your data infrastructure, can support those real-time signals just like they would any other kind of batch processing. I guess the last thing I would just leave you with, if I scroll way back, and hopefully people don't get motion sick from the scrolling, is at the very top here, there was a really good quote right up here. And that is, treasure data is our center of marketing. And I think center of marketing, think about a customer data platform, that is at the center of marketing, right? Because in the day, it's all about your customer information and having it as all that data in a platform. And here's the interesting thing: it's our key to how we'll live in a cookieless world and an even more digital environment and still connect with our consumers. So what AB InBev has done, in some ways, they've kind of looked, they were lucky. They've been on this journey for a while. They set up the treasure data CDP, and now they're well positioned for what's coming down the pike in terms of increased data privacy laws and security, and also a cookieless world, they're really well positioned for the future, right? It's almost like they had a crystal ball and put it in place and got everything ready for this future that's upon us. So
Yeah.
anyway, those are some of the highlights that I took out of this. I would strongly encourage the viewers to download this and read it. There's some really good data points in here around some of the value propositions and how they got going on this journey.
No, thank you. Thank you for that, David. I definitely know AB InBev is a large CPG company. And just off the top of my head, and some of their portfolio brands are things like Budweiser, the king of beers, right?
Mm.
The Corona beers, which is a huge brand in North America, and then also Stella Artois, which I just drank last night. And not to mention, they've also got huge presence in Asia and also Europe. And there are many other brands I haven't even heard of. So they've definitely have the international presence, but at the same time, they need to be able to manage, like you said, all that worldwide data assets. And they can only do that by breaking down all the different data silos and really kind of unify all the data all together. So they can go from a very huge, holistically global perspective into a very local personalization. Personalization, not just hello Bob, but also to the point of, hey, I know your preferences, I know how to keep your data secure, I know the local laws to make sure that we can keep your trust by having your data stored with us personally, not with some third-party vendors or some outside contractors. No, your data's with me, and I know how to take care of it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think what's that phrase? Think global but act local.
Yes, yes.
And essentially what the CDP has done is allowed AB InBev to take advantage of two things. One, their global scale, right? They have this advantage of having all these global brands. I mean, what is up top here? I think it kind of talked about, I guess it doesn't talk here about the number of brands, but they down here, there's 50 countries, $54 billion. I mean, there's just dozens and dozens of brands, but so they can use that global scale, but they can act locally with the personalization, do the understanding of those local laws and the local nuances, if you will. So they kind of can operate as almost like a small startup while leveraging that global scale.
That's fantastic. That is truly true. And thank you, David, for all the insights on AB InBev today. And thank you for joining us. And don't forget to go to the description to find out how to get to this AB InBev case study for you to read more details of what we discussed today. And also for more videos like this, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to turn on the bell for all notifications. And we will be back again in 2 weeks with more topics for CPG Bytes. Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.